You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I have to start with LaMarcus Aldridge stunningly announcing his retirement. If you go on his Twitter, you'll see an incredibly heartfelt letter that he wrote. Basically, to boil it down to the ground, Aldridge has a heart issue. Against the Lakers, he was playing with an irregular heartbeat. That could be something in and of itself, or it could be symptomatic of something much bigger. So because of that, LaMarcus Aldridge is retiring 5 games into his Brooklyn Nets career. Let me start by saying that I fully understand this decision. At the end of the day, health comes first. If this was something like a hamstring or an Achilles, a common basketball injury, okay, fight through it. Take all the time you need to come back at 100%, but don't retire over it. This is something different. This is a heart issue. This is something that really could cause him to drop dead on the basketball court. Remember Hank Gathers? 30 years ago, Hank Gathers, for Loyola Marymount, one of the best college players in the nation, collapsed during the middle of the 1990 WCC tournament. He died a few hours later. The cause of death was hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but that's a serious heart issue. It's very possible that if Aldridge kept pushing himself and pushing himself and pushing himself, that something terrible could have happened to him. He does have his whole life ahead of him. He does have a family that he needs to worry about. At the end of the day, health is more important than basketball. He's already made his millions. He can retire and be set for the rest of his life. I will say this. I don't know if he's a slam dunk Hall of Famer. If you go back to the March 29th episode of the Jacob Valk Show, basketball and NHL breakdown and more, I said that Aldridge was going to get 20,000 points this year. That didn't happen. He'll retire with 19,951. 49 points shy. 20,000 points is the magic number. Usually. There are some guys like Tom Chambers and Anton Jameson that have over 20,000 points, and aren't in the Hall of Fame. They should be, but usually 20,000 points is the magic number. At the end of the day, Aldridge didn't pass that threshold. Now, there are extenuating circumstances. He had to retire because he didn't want to die on the middle of the basketball court. And at the end of the day, he's 49 points shy. That's it. Just 49. Can we make an exception? The answer is yes. LaMarcus Aldridge would still get my vote to go into the Basketball Hall of Fame. I don't think it's as ironclad as it was 24 hours ago, but he'll still get in. He had a great career, and I wish him nothing but the best in retirement. But now, to the Brooklyn Nets fan portion of my brain. Oh, sugar, honey, iced tea. So much for the Death Star. So much for the Avengers. Do the Nets still have a great roster? The answer is yes, but it's not as over the top as it once was. And look, this is a Nets team that's banged up right now. Excluding Aldridge, you take a look at the guys who didn't play yesterday. No Harden, no Chiozza, no Durant, no Griffin, no Dinwiddie, no Tyler Johnson. The Nets are looking like the Walking Dead right now. They went 9 deep yesterday. They had 7 guys listed on the injury report. That's not good. And Aldridge was going to be a big part of what the Nets did. Realize, every game that Aldridge played for the Nets, he started. He played 26 minutes a night, could stretch the floor, played really, really good defense. You're going to say, oh, Jacob, what about the Lakers game? He got torched by Drummond. The guy was dealing with an irregular heartbeat, and he's going up against one of the best interior presences in the NBA. How would you do under those circumstances? Yeah, this is tough. But it's really not the end of the world. The Nets had a lot of depth at center. Look at their roster and tell me how many guys are capable of playing center. DeAndre Jordan, Jeff Green, Bruce Brown, Nick Claxton, Blake Griffin, and Reggie Perry. Those are 6 guys that, in a pinch, can play center. And in fact, they've all played center for the Nets at some point this year. If you want to throw Alize Johnson in there, you can. I do think he could do it, but I left him out because he really hasn't done it for the Nets. Look, it's not one of the big 3. Thank God. It's not Joe Harris. Thank God. It's not Jeff Green. It's not Bruce Brown. It's not Nick Claxton. It's not DeAndre Jordan. Thank God. It's a guy who only played 5 games for the Nets. A guy who was with the team for less than a month. If it's gonna happen, let it happen to a guy like that. I saw some people say that the Nets now lose their 5-out spacing because Aldridge retired. No, that is not true at all. You can put Harden at the 1, Irving at the 2, Harris at the 3, Durant at the 4, Green at the 5. You want to flip-flop Durant and Green? You can. You want to put Blake Griffin at the 5? You can, and you still have that spacing. I mean, let me tell you, Blake Griffin is now a very important player for the Nets. We all love to see him throw down those vintage, vicious dunks. That may not be the best use of his talents right now. He may be better off as a stretch 5. Is Griffin as good a shooter as Aldridge? The answer is no. But for the Nets, Griffin is shooting 38% from beyond the arc. The purpose of the 5 out is to draw the center away from the hoop so you can have the slashers penetrate. All you need in a 5-out offense is a center that the opposing defense needs to respect from beyond the arc. You need to respect Griffin from beyond the arc. Is he going to be Kristaps Porzingis out there? No. But he's not going to be Shaquille O'Neal either. He's capable of hitting threes. The defense will need to respect him. I'll also say this, DeAndre Jordan's going to need to step up. He started yesterday, first time he started after his string of DNPs, and got a double-double, 12 points and 14 rebounds. And also, I'll say this, you wouldn't know it from the box score, but he made Embiid work. Yes, Embiid still went off because he's Joel Embiid. And at the end of the day, there's no excuse to give up almost 40 points. But Embiid did shoot 13 for 29 from the field. That's less than 50%. That's less than what Embiid is shooting from the field this year. At the end of the day, Jordan's going to need to be the guy who goes up against the Joel Embiids, the Rudy Goberts, and the Karl Anthony Towns of the world. This constant switching that the Nets do with Jordan on the floor, they can't do it. You can switch the 4 other positions, you can't switch at center. DeAndre Jordan, I'm talking to you. I've defended you a lot. I think there's a role for you on this team going forward. But you've got to show it now. You've got to step up and play the best defense you've ever played. That's what this team needs you to do. Go ahead and catch those lobs. Go ahead and get those rebounds. That's all well and good. But most importantly, you've got to defend the interior. Do your best Popeye impression. Pop up the spinach out of the can and eat it. If that's going to help you bulk up. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because DeAndre Jordan is actually a vegan. Don't you find that a little interesting? That DeAndre Jordan's a vegan? He actually did a cooking video on the Bon Appetit YouTube channel. Very funny video. I liked watching it. But you've got to step up and be that beast in the interior that you were with the Clippers. No one's expecting you to be as dominant as you were back then, but you do need to play better than you've been playing recently. You haven't been awful, but you haven't been great. In fact, you've probably been closer to bad than good. We've got to get you to very good. Because you're now going to get a lot of minutes. Let's think about what this 10-man rotation is going to be when Harden comes back. Harden, Irving, Harris, Durant, Jordan, Brown, Shamet, Green, Griffin, Claxton. Yes, I'm putting Jeff Green in at the 3 instead of TLC. Jeff Green can play the 3. He's done it before, and I hate TLC. Alright, he's a scrub. Pun intended. Tyler Johnson, too. I'm done with. The only reason that the Nets are feeling Tyler Johnson's absence is because they really don't have another ball handler right now. It's just a combination of injuries that leaves the Nets without that ball handler, with the exception of Kyrie Irving. I mean, Brown's not awful at it, he's just not great. Am I okay with him doing it going forward? The answer is yes, but he's another guy who's going to need to step up. At the end of the day, the big 3 can't do it all by themselves. They are going to need some help. Aldridge would have been nice to have. There's no question. He would have helped a lot. But at the end of the day, his health comes first. I wish him nothing but the best. And it is an injury that the Nets can survive. They just need their existing players to play up to their potential. And you know what? I think these guys can do it. Moving on now to Heat Nuggets. The Nuggets' first game without Jamal Murray. If you're unaware, he is out for the year with a torn left ACL. Didn't hurt the Nuggets too much yesterday as they destroyed the Heat, 123-106. Give Nikola Jokic a ton of credit. He had a triple-double. And with Murray out, I'd expect to see Jokic as the initiator of that offense. I like Monte Morris, but I don't think he's as good as Jokic in that role. Facundo Campazzo isn't. PJ Dozier isn't. It's got to be Jokic. And you did see it yesterday. He had 11 assists. Did a great job setting up Michael Porter Jr., who had a double-double. Monte Morris had 11 points. Aaron Gordon nearly had a double-double. PJ Dozier had 15 points. JaMychal Green had 17 points. Just to give you some specifics, MPJ had 25 points and 10 rebounds. Aaron Gordon had 16 points and 9 rebounds. Look, the Murray injury is obviously a tough blow. There's no question. But with a guy like Jokic, who's a point center anyway, I don't want to say you won't lose much because Murray is your second best player. But Jokic will lessen the impact of that loss. Would I like to see Monte Morris step up into more of an initiator? The answer is yes. But again, Jokic can do it. He's the best passing big man in the NBA. Look, it's unfair to expect Jokic to put up triple-doubles every night. But he can be the main initiator of the offense, and the Nuggets will be fine. If the season ended today, the Nuggets would face the Lakers in the first round. That'd be a fun playoff matchup. Obviously, there's no LeBron and AD right now, but when those guys come back, going up against this Nuggets team that has Jokic, Porter, Barton, Gordon, and Morris, with Jermichael Green and Paul Millsap coming off the bench, that's going to be a really fun playoff series. Alright, now I'll give you some MLB Vault talk. And I'll start with the no-hitter that happened last night. Carlos Rodon blanked the Cleveland Indians. That ninth inning, though, was one of the craziest ninth innings that a no-hitter has ever had. Firstly, it didn't even start out as just a no-hitter. It started out as a perfect game. 24 up, 24 down. Rodon gets up 0-2 on Josh Naylor, and he hits this little nubber to Jose Abreu at first. Naylor is booking it to first base. Instead of it being 8-0, he thought it was 1-0. Abreu pulls off this incredible lunge. You've heard of the outstretched arm? This was the outstretched leg. To just beat Naylor at first. Naylor dove into first, which I don't like. Usually you see injuries happen that way. Thank God he didn't get hurt, but wow. Go search out that clip on Twitter or YouTube. Every no-hitter has that one great defensive play that saves it. In fact, the White Sox would know something about that when Mark Burley pitched his perfect game. In very similar circumstances, the first batter of the ninth, Gabe Kapler, almost broke up the no-hitter. He hit a ball that should have been a home run, but Dwayne Wise made one of the greatest catches you'll ever see. After you're done searching out Abreu, search out Dwayne Wise, former Yankee great. But regardless, Naylor is out. We're through 8 1/3 at this point. 25 up, 25 down. Rodon hits Roberto Perez in the foot. And he did. Okay? It's clear as day. Perez didn't make it up. Could you imagine breaking up a perfect game, especially when the score is 8-0, by pretending that you got hit by a pitch? The baseball gods would smite you into next year. But Perez didn't do that. He got legitimately hit by the pitch. Granted, it was close. If the pitch had been a foot more to the left, maybe Rodon gets the perfect game, but it wasn't. That's how he lost perfection, on a hit by pitch. It's tough. There's no question. It's one of those things that Rodon's going to play back in his head over and over again. But he still had a no-hitter to keep. And he got Yu Chang to strike out. He got Jordan Luplow to ground out to Yoan Moncada at third base. 28 up, 27 down. Now you've got to love that it was Carlos Rodon that did this. This guy was supposed to be the next Billy Pierce. He was taken 3rd overall in the 2014 MLB draft. And he has had injury after injury after injury. from a sprained left wrist to a shoulder injury to Tommy John surgery. Rodon has had to jump through a million hoops to get to where he is. And there was talk that he wouldn't even start the season in the White Sox rotation. They were talking about putting him in the bullpen. But because he was so great in spring training, La Russa put him in the rotation as the fifth starter. Here's a guy who, in 2019 and 2020, only started a combined 9 games. Now you take a look at his baseball reference page for this year. He has 8 instances of bold type. That's impressive. I understand that the season's still young, and I'm not saying that Carlos Rodon is going to win the Cy Young Award, but it's a very easy story to get behind. If ever there was a case of a 28-year-old having something left in the tank that no one has ever seen, it's Carlos Rodon. A guy who you want to root for, who you know has talent. When he's pitched, he's been good. He's just been hampered by injuries. Now it seems like he's on the right track. There's a lot of baseball to get through. There's no question. But Rodon does seem to be finally putting it all together. I'm really happy for him. Moving on now to the Red Sox sweeping the Twins in yesterday's 7-inning doubleheader, because that's what everyone wants. 14 innings of baseball through 2 games. God almighty, do I hate 7-inning doubleheaders. That's not why I'm talking about this, though. I'm talking about this because the Boston Red Sox at this very moment are the second best team in baseball. The Dodgers are the best at 10-2. The Red Sox are 9-3. After getting swept by the Orioles at Fenway to open up the season, the Red Sox have won 9 straight. I don't know if that's ever happened before. You get swept in your opening series, and then you win 9 straight. That's pretty impressive. But you've got to give this Red Sox team a ton of credit. Everyone in that lineup, with the exception of Bobby Dahlbeck, Kike Hernandez, and Hunter Renfroe, is producing. Christian Vasquez, Christian Arroyo, Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers, Franchi Cordero, J.D. Martinez, Alex Verdugo, and even Marwin Gonzalez are all playing really good baseball right now. Their pitching is outstanding. Nady Eovaldi, Nick Pivetta, and Erod have put together some really good starts. Matt Barnes has been lights out as their closer. Leading up to him, that bullpen has been basically immaculate. Matt Andriese, Darwinzon Hernandez, Hirokazu Sawamura, Phillips Valdez, and Garrett Whitlock, a former Yankee. He was in their minor league system. Is it possible that the Red Sox are for real? Are they better than we thought they were going to be? Probably not. I mean, it is April. And I can say this with confidence. Xander Bogaerts is not going to finish the season with a batting average over .370. Same thing with J.D. Martinez. Matt Barnes will blow some saves. I don't think the Red Sox are going to make the playoffs, but I will say that they'll have a respectable record at the end of the season. And as much as I killed the decision to bring back Alex Cora, not from the Red Sox end of things, that made sense, but from the Major League Baseball end of things, how can you allow him back to the team that he did illegal things for? But Alex Cora is doing a fantastic job with that team. The difference between last year's Red Sox and this year's Red Sox is night and day. Look, I like Ron Reineke. I think he's a smart guy. I think he has a decent head on his shoulders. But compared to Alex Cora, this guy looks like Bobby Valentine. And I'm talking Red Sox Bobby Valentine, not Mets Bobby Valentine. Cora has been such a steadying influence to that team. You can tell that they're playing for him. You can tell that he's the right guy for that team. Again, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I do think they'll be better than what I thought they'd be before the season started. Let's say high 70s, low 80s in total wins. Alright, now I'll give you some NHL Vault talk. And I'll start with some interesting comments from JT Miller. Just to give you some background, JT Miller is a member of the Vancouver Canucks. You probably knew that. What you may not know is that the Canucks haven't played since March 24th. They've had the biggest COVID outbreak of any team in the four major sports. You want to tell me the Miami Marlins? Not even close. The Marlins went a week without playing. The Canucks have gone almost a month. To put March 24th into perspective, Gonzaga was still undefeated. Sam Darnold was still a Jet. And the baseball season hadn't even started yet. Now, the reason for their lengthy pause is that 22 players, basically their whole team, and 4 staffers, have tested positive for a variant of the coronavirus. And these aren't asymptomatic infections. These guys have been feeling it. It was reported a little over a week ago that it was the Brazilian variant, and it's caused vomiting, cramping, and dehydration. Their family members are getting it. It's an incredibly nasty outbreak, and you have Miller saying, well, wait a second. We've been dealing with all of this. You want us to come back and immediately play hockey? That's not going to work. They reopened their facilities on Sunday. Their first game is set to be tomorrow. That's not a lot of time. I don't blame JT Miller for feeling how he feels. He's right. And more so than that, how many ham and eggers are we going to see forced into action tomorrow against the Oilers? Because the Canucks regulars are still on the COVID list. I don't know, but I can say this. It's more than it should be. 1 or 2, okay, I can live with that. once you get past that, it gets tough. I mean, to accommodate this outbreak, the NHL moved the end of the North Division schedule to May 16th. To put that into perspective, the last game that an American team is scheduled to play right now is May 12th. Blues versus Wild. The Canucks are going to play 3 games past that date. We're moving the playoffs back an awful lot here. This is tough. It's bad enough we were going to get hockey in July anyway. You don't want it to stretch really far into July. You definitely don't want it to go into August. Last year, okay. You had a 4-month pause to deal with. This year you haven't had that. The schedule that the Canucks are set to play is absolutely brutal. It's the kind of thing that only a mad scientist would think of. They're going to play 19 games in 31 days. Of those 31 days, 10 of them will feature back-to-back games. But even more so than that, anecdotally, the schedule looks weird. From April 22nd to April 28th, the Canucks will play the Senators for 4 straight games. 4 games in 7 days against the same opponent. Their last 5 games of the season are from May 10th to May 16th. 4 of those games are against the Jets and the Flames. How do you come up with this stuff? I mean, seriously, how is this okay? How is this what fans want to see? Oh, but Jacob, what's the alternative? You're just Monday morning quarterbacking it. Yeah, I am. You know what? I don't have an easy answer to that. If you start saying that the Canucks are going to play less than 56 games this year, then there are sponsorship agreements to think of, TV deals to think of. There's a big financial component to this. I mean, really, instead of rejiggering it like crazy, what these leagues should have done is said, if Team A can play, but Team B can't, Team A is awarded the win. It'll be considered a forfeit by Team B. I understand that no one would really like that, but it's better than this. You get the sense that no one on the Canucks really wants to play hockey. I mean, it's a lost season anyway for them. Before the pause, they weren't a threat to make the playoffs. Now forget about it. There's no way. I don't know what the right answer is, but now we're going to move the whole playoffs back because the Canucks had a huge COVID outbreak. I feel bad for them. Now their punishment for that is 19 games in 31 days. These guys are going to be dead to the world come May. They're going to be like those guys from Miracle when Herb Brooks has them skating back and forth across the ice until Mike Eruzione stops him. Miracle, the best hockey movie. You know, again, I don't know what the right answer is, but is it worth it to put the Canucks through this? I think the answer is no. And once you start extending the season a bunch of days, no one likes that. By then, we're ready for the playoffs. Let's go. Playoff hockey. One of the best things in sports. The NHL has the best playoffs. This is an impossible situation. I don't envy anyone who really has to deal with it. Moving on now to the Capitals. Signing Connor Sheary to a 2-year extension worth $3 million. And this is a really good move for the Capitals. Sheary has shown that he fits perfectly on the Capitals' third line. You put him with Lars Eller and Daniel Sprong, you've got something there. Sheary has 19 points in 40 games this year. He's shown a knack towards putting the puck in the net. For him to agree to a deal worth $1.5 million per year, that's a steal for the Caps. I think Sheary could have gotten more than that in free agency, but he wanted to be loyal to the Caps. I give him credit. I give Peter Laviolette a lot of credit for helping rejuvenate Sheary's career. There's no question that he's better now than he was at any time in his career since his sophomore season. This is a really, really good move for the Capitals. It doesn't make up for their terrible Mantha trade, but it's still a good move. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that when a player gets out of a slump, you've got to trade him while he's still hot.